Welcome to Geekview Tavern. On this episode, we welcome Marv Wolfman, writer, editor, and industry gold. So grab a seat by the bar, we're glad you're here. From Tomb of Dracula, to Spider-Man, to Crisis on Infinite Earths, Marv Wolfman has seen it all in the modern age of comics. With George Perez, he created the only version of Teen Titans anyone's familiar with. I'm your host and bartender, Dave Olbrich. I'm the former publisher of Malibu Comics. So please share this video with friends, like the episode, leave a comment, but please subscribe. Okay, Skeeter, hit the intro. Welcome to Geekview Tavern. I'm Dave, and this is my co-host, Tom Mason. Wave to the people, Tom. Tom Mason's a greater dinosaurs for hire, personal editor and writer who's done comics and books and TV shows and animation. But our very special guest today is Mr. Marv Wolfman. Thanks for joining us, Marv. We really appreciate it. Marv's been working in the comic book business since 1967 and has done work for major publishers in 7 different decades. We looked it up. We have verification of that. And something just came out, right?
Yeah. I've written Superman over 6 decades, and this came out on Tuesday.
Wow, that's very cool.
So this takes care of this decade. Now
and we call ourselves Geekview Tavern because we're just sitting around talking like a bunch of guys would, having lunch or having drinks. So this is my drink of choice. I'm having a little domestic lager, and Marv's got a drink going, and Tom's got his usual glass of vodka. So
we are set, and I am on fire.
Cheers to you all. I looked it up on the Wikipedia, and I don't know how accurate that is, Marv, but it said that you've done work for 21 different comic book publishers. There's of course the long list of
there have been 21 publishers.
According to Wikipedia, you've worked for 21 different comic book publishers, yeah.
Okay. I don't keep record. I have no idea how many I've worked for.
There you go. And 31 different animated shows? That's a pretty good run.
Yeah, that I've done a lot of animation, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did Superman in animation. I was the story editor of Superman for CBS. So that was one of the decades, I guess.
There you go.
So the first time I met Marv was in 1976, the Chicago Comic-Con. I was, a wee lad, and you spent some time with me, and I'll always be grateful for that. What was your original gateway into comics? You're just a kid running around, blah, 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 and then, how did you go from that to, loving comics?
Well, my getting into comics was frankly because I'm lazy. My friend and I, we were kids in Brooklyn.
Yep.
My friend and I were watching a TV show called Howdy Doody.
Okay.
Very famous kid show at the time.
Yep.
Stupid as sin. I don't know how that title got out there, but Howdy Doody it was. At the end of the show, normally we would get up and change the channel because there were no remotes back then. We were going to change it to another channel, but we didn't get up. And the show that started was The Adventures of Superman.
Oh, there you go.
We went, what is this? And started to watch it. And watched it and really liked it. And at the end, it said something to the effect of Superman is based on the copyrighted character appearing in Superman and Action Comics Monthly.
Right.
Well, my friend and I got up, walked to the corner where there was a newsstand, and bought our first Superman, and never stopped.
Wow,
that's awesome.
So you're a comic book fan, and you're able to meet other comic book fans because you're in New York, or didn't that really happen? Like Tom and I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so
there was absolutely nobody I knew who read comics except me.
Okay.
Then I moved out of Brooklyn and to Queens, and I still didn't know anybody who read comics, but I had a letter published in Mystery in Space. Julie Schwartz, at that particular time, the editor of Mystery in Space, he would print the address with the letter. He printed mine, and a couple of weeks later, on the same day, I got 2 different fanzines mailed to me.
Oh, there you go.
I got the Rocket Blast, which was a pretty famous one, and the Comic Reader. another very famous one.
I heard a story about those letters pages. Like, you remember you were talking about how the letters pages always had addresses? Apparently, any woman who ever like wrote into the fan thing and got her letter published and then would have her address published, almost immediately always got letters from prison.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. I've never heard that, but now I'll never forget it. Fortunately, they actually sent these two different magazines, fanzines to me.
Yep.
And then I got into fandom. And once I got into fandom, slowly started to meet over mail all the other fans.
Yeah. What was the transition from that into, like, I know you went to art school. Did I get that right? I went to
the High School of Art and Design.
You went to the high school for art design. Okay.
High School of Art and Design, which was a very famous, and still is, high school in New York, where a lot of comic book guys got started under its previous name, which was the High School of Industrial Arts. At some point, they changed the name to Art and Design.
Right.
I guess to make it less industrial. It sounds like a business, and
it sounds like they're trying to design a cotton gin or something, right?
Exactly. So they changed their name. Bernie Krigstein was a teacher there.
Wow.
And I was in his class, but they moved you around until you settled on your major. So you got to be with a lot of the different teachers, and every teacher at Art and Design had to be a professional in the field they were teaching. And Art and Design, the school day was very long, because besides all the regular high school stuff that you would have, art, writing, English, math, all that stuff, you'd have 4 hours of art every day.
Wow.
But yes, my original intent was to be an artist.
Yeah.
I was just never
all
good
that
enough.
training went to waste.
Totally went to waste. What I do say, in all honesty, is actually all that training helped. I think a lot of writers don't know how much you can actually ask from an artist. They overdo it. They give too many instructions. And I learned what could actually appear in a panel. And it was very important because I was taking cartooning.
Go ahead, Tom. You've written a lot of comics.
Well, so did Krigstein ever take you aside and say, "Listen, kid, stop drawing and start writing"?
No, he would not talk about comics. He was my illustration teacher.
Okay.
He would never talk about it, and I really wanted to talk about the EC books that he did, because even as a kid, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Master Race and all of those.
You can sort of tell from looking at his stuff that when he broke the format, he really stood out.
Yeah.
Like when suddenly he would make Feldstein angry and would just go his own way, he clearly stood out as like a guy who was going to go somewhere.
He had, in my senior year, he had, because everybody was professional, they would have a gallery in the school of their work. So this month would be Bernie Krigstein. And you'd see all of his work, but I didn't see any comics. It was all paintings and it was all different types of art, but no comics.
It's too bad.
Was anybody even attempting to teach comics, or not really?
I had a cartooning teacher.
Okay, good.
And we were taught the comic stuff. He had been in back in the 1940s or 50s one of the artists like Captain Marvel. What was interesting was he was African American. He was the only one, and I could go online and find information on him, but I've never seen anybody in comics talk about the fact that even back then, there were black artists working in comics.
Sure.
Wow. I didn't know that, because I knew CC Beck and I knew Pete Costanza, but I never knew that there was a black Captain Marvel artist.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he was really good, because he actually almost said that to me, because he didn't think my serious drawings were good, but he loved my humor work. He encouraged me to do a lot more of humor, which is why I think I have so much, at least in my mind, a lot of humor in the books I write.
Right.
Sure.
Even in something like Dracula, we had a character that was pure for fun, called Harold H. Harold.
Yeah.
And I've always done a lot of comedy stuff in my books to lighten the mood, and that comes from there.
Right.
Yeah.
But Beast Boy had a sense of humor about him too. He was sort of a comic relief.
I put him into the Titans specifically to have somebody that I could write lighter material for, because
Right.
I knew that we were going to be doing some stuff that had never been done in superhero books that may be considered a little dark at the time. So I wanted to make sure that we already had in place a character who could help lighten the mood when I needed it to be.
Because I think he played off Cyborg and Raven really well.
Yeah.
That relationship. I mean, even in a cartoon like Teen Titans Go, that basic relationship setup still carries over to the goofier version of Titans.
What's really fun about Teen Titans, there are 3 different Teen Titans series on TV simultaneously.
Right.
There's Teen Titans Go for the youngest kids.
Right.
The Teen Titans cartoon show from the 10 years ago is back. And the live action Teen Titans, which is for adults. So we have the entire, from little kids to teenage kids to adults.
We've sort of talked about this briefly online before, but when you were starting out, did you ever envision something like that happening with work that you were involved in? That suddenly there would not only be like one show, there's basically 3 different versions of the show, along with toys, video games, action figures. I mean, your showcase of stuff must be huge.
It's back there someplace. There was no way to have anticipated that because it had never happened.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a picture of me as a 7 or 8 year old in a Superman t-shirt that wasn't bought at the stores because there was literally no merchandise. That came as a giveaway from Kellogg's cereal.
Wow.
And if you handed in box tops. I saved all my box tops and was able to get that. But you couldn't find merchandise on any of the superhero stuff.
No,
right.
it's weird, and now you can't avoid it.
Exactly.
It's the dominant culture now.
Yeah, which is both good and bad.
Go ahead, Tommy. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to make another stupid joke.
Yeah,
but
the jokes are good. Jokes are encouraged. And Tomb of Dracula was your very first regular Marvel assignment? Were there any before that, or is it like the very first one, like you hit the ground running?
No, I did. I worked for Tower Shadows. I did some Kid Colt Western things. I did 2 issues of Captain Marvel, which is maybe the worst thing I've ever written in my life. I did a number of things, but not that many superhero stuff. Except
right.
The feeling back then was I wasn't a good superhero writer, but they liked me for the horror stuff and the comedy, because I was the editor also of Crazy Magazine.
Right.
That's so weird. Because I don't think of you that way at all. But I guess you just fall into a pigeonhole, right?
My preference has always been the non-superhero stuff to write.
Right.
I enjoy it as a fan, but to write, I really preferred the darker stuff for comedy.
Okay.
Well, that was a great period for Marvel's expansion, because they were sort of getting away from, well, not getting away from, but supplementing their superhero stuff with a bunch of oddball material that wasn't necessarily part of the Marvel universe. So there was Tomb of Dracula, there's Master of Kung Fu, stuff that I consider the coolest stuff.
But what happened was, you notice that I don't have any superhero stuff at Marvel in the early days.
Right.
Because of Tomb of Dracula, I was learning structure, and I was learning how to put a story together, how to create characters. Everything was coming out of Tomb of Dracula. What happened was they assigned me, without my asking, Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. Now, Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character.
Wait. Back up. You may have buried the lead. You're sitting there at your home, like, writing Tomb of Dracula, and then you get a call and go, oh, by the way, you're going to write Spider-Man and you're going to write Fantastic Four? That's like a call? How does that work?
I don't know. I wish I did. But I was panic-stricken.
I'll bet.
Because as I say, Spider-Man was my favorite Marvel character.
Sure.
Fantastic Four was my favorite Marvel book. And when I was assigned both of those, I spent a couple weeks rereading every single issue of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four.
Wow.
And then incorporating what I knew from Tomb of Dracula and the subplotting of Tomb of Dracula, the character interaction between Peter and everybody else. And not Spider-Man, but Peter, informed me how to put together superhero stuff.
Sure.
I incorporated that into Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. I just never thought that I'd be able to write Spider-Man. The sense of humor that Stan used in Spider-Man was very specific. and it was not something that came naturally to me.
Right.
But because I had spent the time a couple years learning all the Marvel stuff, I was an editor up there because I understood the material and I certainly knew how to plot and all of that stuff. I found out, oddly enough, that Spider-Man was the most fun to write. I quickly fell into his pattern, the way Stan wrote the character, and then was able to take the plotting to the next level.
Who are the artists you worked with on Spider-Man?
Ross Andru and Keith Pollard. And Ross is one of the brilliant, unappreciated artists in the comic industry. He was brilliant.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite Spider-Man artists for sure. Actually, yeah. I think he's genius.
I think I did a lot of work with Ross, but not only on Spider-Man, but on Night Force, and we shared an office at DC, and we actually did a comic strip together that we sold. It was to newspapers, but we didn't get enough papers to let Ross make an income. I was willing to do it free. The strip was called The Unexplained, very realistic. And it was the X-Files 10 years before X-Files. It was about two parapsychologists who were searching the unknown.
Man, if you could have just got that in front of Chris Carter.
Yeah. No,
you could have cashed some checks.
Yeah,
for sure.
And nobody saw the strip except for the Daily News Syndicate in New York. They bought it instantly. We went to the Daily News to show it, positive that we would never sell it there, but it would give us a chance to learn our pattern, learn how to sell, and learn what to say. So we wanted a guinea pig, a test dummy. We didn't know that at the end of the meeting they wanted to buy it. And they paid us to do 3 weeks worth of it, a couple of Sunday strips. They loved it, but unfortunately, when they tried to sell it, they couldn't get enough newspapers.
So what happened to those strips? Do you still have those? Do you know where they are?
Yeah.
Are they available online? Anything like that?
There may be some online because I've let it be shown at different times. Called The Unexplained.
If I dig up any of it, I'll put it in the description on the video. I think that's super cool.
I've got the originals, and I've got the color poster that they paid us to do, which is beautiful. Ross did an incredible job on it. I've got all that stuff.
I really loved Andru's work because to me he was like the perfect middle ground for Spider-Man between the really scrawniness of Steve Ditko's version and the more muscular, squat version of Romita, lean, athletic, almost ballet figure of Andru, and he was really good. I think only Gil Kane matched him for being able to spin around Spider-Man's body in weird contortions that look interesting on the page.
Ross's work, in many ways, he was similar to Steve Ditko in that they had a style that was uniquely theirs.
Yes.
He would pose characters in ways that no other artist would have done. What Steve did was with the original Spider-Mans was amazing. Nobody had ever contorted figures like that, but it totally lent itself towards the very bizarre concept behind Spider-Man and made him unique.
Yes.
And Ross was able to do the same in his style.
He's one of the unsung guys. I wish he'd had a bigger run of a body of work that could stand out, that you could pass on to another generation. One
of the things that shows how brilliant he was his issues of King Cole, inked by John Severin. It had Severin's realistic look, but over Ross's layouts and design, and it was just magnificent.
Yes. Yeah. The Wonder Woman stuff that he did with Kanigher and the early Metal Men stuff. I don't really care for the books because they're Kanigher books, but I love to look. I love to look at the artwork. I love to look at the way he sets a page and the way he pays attention to,
especially his Metal Men.
Yeah.
I mean, Wonder Woman, because the stories were so dopey. But then I saw him on Metal Men, and I went, wait a second, this guy's really good.
He really cut loose.
Yeah. And his ability to integrate his characters into the backgrounds, unbelievable. I mean, the construction and the layouts of the buildings and the way he drew New York City was just breathtaking.
The reason he was so good in New York City is like, say I had a scene take place on the Roosevelt Island tram, which went to Roosevelt Island. Ross would go out and photograph. He'd walk on the bridge, the 59th Street Bridge, which was right there next to, and he would photograph it from every angle he could. He wanted to make sure that the backgrounds were pure New York and real, and it was just great.
And that's in the days when there's no cell phone. You have to take those pictures in and get them developed.
Yes.
And a day or so wait.
Yeah.
He must have been blindingly fast.
Ross's big problem was he never liked anything he did, so he'd keep throwing it out and starting over again.
One of those, yeah. I hear you.
He had no understanding of how good he was. He just never was as good as he wanted to be.
Yeah.
But he was brilliant, and I totally loved his work.
Well, Tom can tell you I've got a deep and abiding love for the B and the C characters, and you created a ton of those, right? I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Skull the Slayer, right? Nova, who got his due, right, in the movies, and now Vigilante appeared in the Peacemaker TV show. I remember there was some problem when it first came out that some people didn't like it because they didn't like Adrian Chase that much.
Yeah, well, what I have discovered when George and My Teen Titans was being announced, there were DC house ads. We got hate mail on this stuff because this wasn't the Teen Titans that the fans knew. From the advertisement, they hated the idea of these characters. When the book came out, we got all this love letters from the same people. The fans don't know what they want until they actually see it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Given the way things are now, it's a bad idea to show things early.
Oh, I hate it. I maintain that if we acted back in when I did Crisis, the way they are now, every secret would have been given away 4 months early.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
And I never talked about any of my stuff. I never gave any of the news fanzines a single bit of information that was specific. And I did not want anyone to have the slightest idea. Can you imagine if I had told everybody in advance that Supergirl was going to die?
Right. Oh, the outcry would have been horrendous. That's
on the other hand, now the reaction I get was, we didn't want Supergirl to die, but that was the best Supergirl story ever. I would not have gotten that if they knew in advance.
That's the thing.
As a reader, Marv, we thank you, because that was always a delight to not know until you turned the page.
When I was reading comics and I was of a certain age, I wasn't plugged into anything because I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I would get the new issue of a comic book and I would read it to the end, and there would be the cliffhanger ending, and it would be, in my 13, 14, 15-year-old brain, it would be a genuine shocker that, this could really be a character's death, or this character's coming back, or this villain is showing up again. And you would gasp a little bit because you couldn't wait the 28 days for the next issue. Yeah. And I think the modern world has sort of taken some of that away. And the surprise,
many spoilers.
Yeah, the surprise of what you want is gone. And I miss those days of comics.
The surprise brings you into the story.
Yes.
Yeah, get you involved. Do you have a spreadsheet of all the characters that you created by Marv Wolfman, and do you have a spreadsheet of all that stuff so you know what?
If I have any regret, is I never kept any records.
Right.
I look at the online things, Wikipedia and stuff. There are people that have lists of all my characters, but the problem is that a lot of the stuff went uncredited in the original, so they wouldn't have known I wrote it. One of the early things I did at DC was I wrote romance stories for the romance comics.
Right.
My name, nobody knew that because my name isn't on any of it. There were no credits.
Sure.
Was that for editor Dorothy Wolfook?
Yeah, for Dorothy.
How was she to work with?
She was okay. I mean, she gave me work.
She signed the voucher, so that's a good thing.
She signed the voucher, and she let me do sort of a humorous approach to a lot of the romantic stuff. I did a 1 or 2 page, I forget how long, very tiny, very short stories, almost a series called Penelope Potter or something, and they were all funny.
Oh, but nice.
I had pitched to her, and unfortunately the romance books were dying, and so I pitched to her the idea of a Lana Lang series as a romance thing without Superman, hoping that Superman readers would come and read it anyway, because it was a series about a character they knew. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, I could write straightforward romance stories in it.
Yeah.
And that would have been a unique book because nobody had ever done a continued romance series.
I think that wraps it up.
I think so too. So thanks everybody for coming to Geekview Tavern. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Marv. Give us a wave. Say goodbye to everybody and call it a day. All right.
Marv, it's been an absolute delight.
Thanks for visiting Geekview Tavern. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified. Come back soon.